It is very clear Blake Lively and her team's strategy is to let Judge Lyman do their job for them. And I wonder if Judge Lyman is smart enough to figure that out. What lawyering has Blake and her team actually done? Other than, look, Judge, we told you. Look, Judge, we told you. Sanction them. Strike this. Seal this. Has Judge Lyman realized he's working for Team Lively yet? Let's get into it. Well, hello there, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of F Around and Find Out. Before we get into it, I want everybody to give themselves a round of applause, a shout out, anything. Thank you guys so much for 23,000 subscribers. I don't know how we got here because I started this literally for shits and giggles, and I didn't know we would be here in August. So 23,000 subscribers later, I'm filled with gratitude, and I want to say thank you. I appreciate it. I know I tell you guys every day, but wow, 23,000 of you out there in the world, spread out across the globe, see something in me, and well, thank you for that. This is also your friendly reminder that we all gathered here today, beloved, because Blake Alanda Brown Lively Reynolds brought us here because she claimed she had been assuaged by Justin Louise Baldoni. Yet, however many months in, however many days in, however many hours in, the thing that seems to really bother this woman is this dream of somebody smearing her name. She can't go to sleep without thinking about it. She wakes up wondering, oh my God, what is the bad story about me today? I mean, honestly, who can tell me the last time Blake or her lawyers brought anything on the docket or try to argue anything about SH? When was the last time? I'll wait. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Right. Nobody has an answer because this woman has been so focused on this smear campaign that she forgot. She gathered us all here because she claimed this man made her feel uncomfortable, assuaged her, but that seems to have gone completely out of the window. For Blake Lively and her team to continue accusing Justin Baldoni and his team of using the media, they sure as hell do a lot of that, don't they? If you look up her name, it's how she's complaining to the judge, it's how her lawyers are complaining to the judge, it's how they're accusing Justin Baldoni. Why? All because of this conversation we had last week. Remember, we talked about this last week where I told you guys Kevin Fritz had put a little bit, and when I say a little bit, barely a sentence from the deposition into his motion he wrote to the judge to allow Brian Friedman to get out of a subpoena, where he said, upon questioning by Friedman at her recent deposition, Lively admitted that the only smear campaign about which she had knowledge of was blah, blah, blah. Well, Blake Lively and her team took that and ran. And don't say I didn't tell you. I told you this judge was already on high alert and Blake's team was going to use this as a way to muddy the waters and say they leaked this, they did that, even though it's redacted, even though they're not letting us know exactly what the sentence she even said was. But Blake and her team are already jumping on a grenade that's not even a grenade because, like I said, it was a crumb of a crumb of a crumb. This meant nothing in the grand scheme of things had they not brought more attention to it. And now that I'm thinking about it, that deposition must have gone horribly. And I mean horribly if they're doing all of this to keep the deposition from coming into the public records. Plaintiff Blake Lively, by and through the undersigned counsel, hereby moves pursuant to New York Rule of Professional Conduct and federal Rule of Civil Procedure for sanctions against defendant's counsel. At this point, is a broken record. Every other Monday, every other Wednesday, you want sanctions. You want sanctions against his mama, his daddy, his lawyer. Hell, next you're going to sanction his damn kids. Ms. Lively respectfully submits that the court should impose sanctions against Mr. Friedman as a consequence of his relentless media campaign to harm Ms. Lively's character, credibility, and reputation. For these reasons, and those set forth in more detail in the accompanying memorandum of law, the court should impose sanctions on Mr. Friedman. Methinks Blake Lively and her team were the exact people to release her outfit details to TMZ, to tell TMZ she's in there with Justin Baldoni face to face. Because Jen Abel was there, Steve Surwitz was there. Keep in mind, all parties to the lawsuit had the right to be there. Blake Lively bringing 8 lawyers is not the same as everybody she's suing being there. So them trying to make it seem like, well, we had to go bang for bang, we had to match their energy, doesn't make any sense. Blake Lively slams and shames Justin Baldoni's lawyer over making her deposition public, leaking details of last week's sit-down for media campaign. First of all, the only thing that came from the Wayfair parties was literally redacted. When I told you guys it was a crumb of a crumb, I was not joking. You can't do anything with that information. I truly believe Blake and her team were the ones to leak information because they knew on Monday they wanted to come out explosive. They want to come out and combat whatever the Wayfair parties was going to do on Friday, on Thursday. Because why? Why would you just, this makes no sense. Actually, it does. Why am I lying? It makes sense. This is their strategy. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni came face-to-face last week as the entered as actress gave her deposition in the fierce fight over whether sexual harassment and retaliation occurred on the film and the online fallout around its premiere a year ago. Regardless of what Lively did or did not say in response to questions by Wayfair Studios co-founder Baldoni's lead lawyer, Brian Friedman, and others, a letter from Another Simple Favor star's own attorneys filed today in federal court makes it pretty clear. In hindsight, the July 31st sit-down did not go well. I could have told you that for free. They're fighting tooth and nail to keep this deposition out of public records. If it went well, if she answered questions the correct way, if everything looks good, why wouldn't you want it out here? But to go through all of this to keep it out of the public records is actually funny. In rushing to file on the public docket the entirety of the 292, just thinking about it makes me warm and fuzzy inside. Guys, I know a lot of you don't care, but it makes me feel all warm and tingly and fuzzy inside. I can't wait to get my hands on it. In rushing to file on the public docket the entirety of the 292-page transcript on the day they received it with no plausible legal reason to do so. They don't have to give you one. And you know what pisses me off the more I think about it? Blake and her team act like the Wayfair parties kind of work for them or the Wayfair parties have to do them a favor. Have you guys not realized you are in a battle? The Wayfair parties have to do whatever they can to represent their client the best way possible. They don't owe you anything. You're acting as though there's some type of professional courtesy here. They should look out for you. Why? If the deposition is in his favor, if it looks good for him, it behooves them to show us. There is nothing illegal about showing the deposition transcript. There's nothing illegal about it. With no plausible legal reason to do so, the Wayfair defendants and their counsel have proved Ms. Lively's point, which is what exactly? The correspondence Monday from Ezra Hudson to Judge Lewis Lyman slamming Team Baldoni's blunt move and wanting everything permanently sealed ASAP. You wish. You wish. The transcript was ostensibly filed in support of the argument that there is no basis to assert that Brian Friedman or his firm have participated in, fueled, and advanced a smear campaign against Ms. Lively, such that their conducts have amounted to public relations work rather than of an attorney. You know what? I find that statement very funny. Very, very funny. You know why? Again, we're here because Blake said she was SH'd. But at every turn, it seems her lawyers are working to save her image more than they're working to prove she was SH. Does that make sense to anybody? Am I going crazy here? Or it seems as though Team Lively's strategy, Team Lively's goal is to prove Blake is not a bad person versus Blake was SH'd. Who is going to tell them? It doesn't matter if she's a good person or a bad person. The goal here is to prove if she was SH'd. Whether you're a good person or a bad person, SH is supposed to topple that. If you could prove you were SH, it doesn't matter if there is a smear campaign against you. You win. Do they not realize that? But in fact, this tactic perfectly demonstrates the counsel as PR agent's role because Ezra Hudson, you're literally a PR girl. You are literally a PR girly. You are not a lawyer. You wake up every day to prove your client is not a bad person, not that your client was SH. Does that make sense to you? Because there is no conceivable legal purpose to file, again, redundant, to file the whole transcript, particularly given that it has not been reviewed, corrected, or finalized, and a mere two pages of it were cited in their argument. The Manat Phineas and Ferbs LLP partners adds, also pointing fingers at Baldoni's side for immediately leaking details. Please. The deposition to the tabloid media Hudson, the letter and attachment should be seen for what they are, a manufactured excuse to force the transcripts into the public domain as fodder for the Wayfair defendants media campaign. And what about it? In an August 1st letter from the Baldoni side, which was filed the same day as the Depo transcript was under temporary seal, attorney Kevin Fritz certainly teases out what was said the day before. Upon questioning by Brian Friedman at her recent deposition, Lively admits that the only ongoing smear campaign about which she had personal knowledge involves Redacted. Again, Redacted. You're acting as though Kevin Fritz told us whatever we wanted to know. It was so tiny. It was so minuscule. It had no effect. Among the details that were dribbled out of the meeting at Lively's lawyer's Manhattan office last Thursday, this is just ridiculous, was what Lively was wearing, what time the deposition started, 10:13, I'm sure she was late, how husband Ryan Reynolds was there with her, what her side did and said, and that Baldoni himself was in the room. Consistent with the goal of creating a media circus around Ms. Lively's deposition, it appears that the Wayfair defendants immediately leaked details. I don't think they did. Immediately leaked details from the deposition to the tabloid media. Hudson's letter notes to Judge Lyman, who has been, I'm going to stop right there. We're going to pick it back up. But if you're the Wayfair parties and you were going to take a chance on leaking something, don't just tell me what she wore. Hell, take a picture. It will last longer. Take a picture from the room. Hell, hire a DoorDash driver to deliver a freaking Panera sandwich and take a picture. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. It seems as though what makes sense here is Team Lively leaked this information knowing for a fact they were going to write this as soon as Kevin Fritz's motion came out. Hudson's letter notes to Judge Lyman, who has been short-tempered about such actions in the past. Now, whether or not those leaks came from Team Baldoni or not, the fact is such info did quickly end up in the likes of the Daily Mail and TMZ, which have had a lot of Team Baldoni scoops over the past year. This is ridiculous. The narrative created was that Miss Lively needed a large contingent of people with her to testify. She did. While misleadingly suggesting that only Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Friedman were present, nobody ever thought only Brian Friedman and Justin were in the room. In fact, I told you guys Jamie Heath was in the room. Nobody would have thought it was just Brian Friedman and Justin. We would have assumed Kevin Fritz would have been there, Ellen Garofalo would have been there, other paralegals. Nobody assumed it was just them. Blake walked in with 8 lawyers. 8. While misleadingly suggesting that only Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Friedman were present for the deposition on their side, today's 3-page letter said, the reality is that Ms. Lively testified across the table from Mr. Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Steve Surwitz, Melissa Nathan, and Jennifer Abel, all of whom attended this deposition in person, as well as 8 attorneys representing the Wayfair and Wallace parties, 2 of whom questioned her. Where's the news? Where is the bombshell? I'm sorry. Is this supposed to shock somebody? You're suing Justin, you're suing Jamie, you're suing Jen Abel, you're suing Melissa Nathan, you're suing Steve Surwitz, Jed Wallace. Am I missing anybody else? Hell, you're suing everybody. Oh, and maybe had your husband not been a bitch baby and gunned himself out of his lawsuit and left you holding the fucking bag, maybe he could have been there holding your tiny little baby hands. But he ducked the fuck out. He ditched you and was like, I ain't got nothing to do with this. I ain't got nothing to do with this. Let me out, Your Honor. And Your Honor said, you can leave. That's why you were sitting at the position by yourself. So take it up with your husband. And let's be honest, from the get-go, this whole case has been media feeding feast with highs and lows. Speaking of let's be honest about the fact that Blake Lively went to the CRD, complained. The CRD was going to investigate. She said, I don't want your fucking investigation. I have something better. I have the New York Times. They're going to do this for me. I'm going to give the New York Times the information. They're going to post it. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be America's princess. And it almost worked. It almost worked. And I will keep saying, give Emily Baldoni her flowers because this has a woman's handwriting all over it. This is given. A woman was like, keep these screenshots. A woman was like, keep this recording. A woman was like, keep your mic on. A woman was like, keep them fucking cameras running at all times. Because had we not had those text messages from Justin, had we not had the proof Justin provided, this would have been an open and shut case back in December. Do you hear me? December. But because we had the proof, because we had the screenshots, because we had the recordings, because we had the behind the scenes shots, we're here in August. 20 days from your birthday, Blake. 20 days from you being a grown-ass 38-year-old on the internet fighting for your life. And my birthday wish for you is to splash some reality in your face. But that's probably not going to happen. So just eat some cake, okay? Or not. Monday, Lively's team had no comment on her lawyer's letter to Judge Lyman, and reps for Baldoni could not be reached for comment. A rare case of dual silence in high profile case. Later in the day, not for the first time and clearly for public consumption. Oh, you recognize that now? Lively's lawyers filed a motion for sanctions against Friedman, claiming the successful LA-based attorney has frequently let loose in a biased and inflammatory pretrial indictment of Ms. Lively's character, credibility, and reputation, and publicly slandering the actress, as they said in a slightly redacted memorandum of law accompanying the motion. Who's going to tell Blake and her team the moment they provide any proof of SH, this will end? Who's going to tell them? The moment we get a lick of proof of SH, this will be done. But here we are, 8 months in, and no proof. No proof. Zero proof. There's so much on the docket we have to cover, but I just barely got back from the airport, barely had something to eat, and I'm exhausted. There were so many delays, and it was a mess. But I'm back home now. I appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate you for 23,000, and come back for the next one when we cover everything else that was on the docket. And I'm sure by the time we wake up on Tuesday, the docket is going to be filled again with more crap, because why not? Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.